as the San Francisco 49ers have, I guess you can't say officially, but effectively lost any chance at making the playoffs. This whole conversation about Brock Purdy has already spiraled. When did we lose Thursday night football? It is Tuesday, December 17th. And the conversation about the future of Brock, whether getting a contract, has absolutely flipped on its head to the point where we have guys like Baldy talking about moving off of Brock. Actually, not just about not paying Brock, but actually just moving off of him. So I just want to kind of take a look at how we got here, especially starting at the beginning of the year when you had all these like top quarterback analysts. I think it was around week 4 talking about how Brock Purdy might have to be considered a top 5 quarterback and how just in about 2 months that has completely flipped on its head. And hey, I get it. The performances haven't been ideal. There's a lot of games that happened within those 2 months that haven't been great. And especially coming off last week's game against the Rams, and it just wasn't a great performance. But let's talk about just where we're at. With 3 games left in the season, the season's not even over, and we are already reached max insanity regarding the pay Brock Purdy conversation or don't pay Brock Purdy conversation. It's been a fascinating last 2 days. But let's talk about it all and discuss maybe why this is happening. But you guys already know what to do. Drop an SDS in the chat, smash that like button, and let's get into it all right now. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see it. So we all know it's been a year, a forgettable one, I guess we could say, or one that we wish we could forget. A season that just has not gone the San Francisco 49ers way, something that just, it's been a crappy year. I think we can all agree to that. So, with this whole situation and everything happening of getting eliminated from the playoffs, it has hyper it's fast forwarded the off-season conversation into the actual season because without fans really having anything to look forward to, like no playoffs, no chance at a Super Bowl, it has opened up the door for roster conversations, and rightfully so. That's to be expected when your team is eliminated from playoff contention. Now, they're not officially eliminated, but they're not going to the playoffs. So, as a result, the number one order of business this offseason is paying Brock Purdy. And so we got the report from Tom Palacero. This is, I think, what really like initiated the fire, where I don't even know if it was a report, opinionated report. Um, Basically said that Brock Purdy and his representation will be trying to get top of market contract, right? They'll be trying to get the highest value at the top of the market of where the quarterback landscape currently lies. And that was also accompanied with like a report from, I believe it was Diana Rossini, who talked about how the 49ers plan on having these off season contract negotiations with Brock. So it seemed like there's some at least outward movement that's being played through these insiders that they're going to engage in these contract negotiations, right? So then, obviously, as a result of that, the conversation begins to be, well, what are we paying Brock? And all hell has broken loose. And to be honest, I'm not surprised one bit, at all, especially with how the season has gone. And of course, it doesn't help with how Thursday night's game against the Rams went either. So, as a result of that, we've already kind of been speaking on it. We've already been talking about it. It's already been a conversation. And then this morning, Brian Baldinger goes on 95.7 The Game. Great question by Shasky. Great interview, honestly. If you go and listen to it, and shout out to Baldy. Um, he is a great source of football knowledge, and so we talk about him on this channel all the time. Love Baldy. He's inspired me to do film breakdowns and things like that. So love Baldy on this channel. So when he speaks, we're going to listen. And so when Baldy goes on 95.7 The Game, he's basically asked a hypothetical question. What would you tell John Lynch if, Brock and his representation, came to you with a, needing a top 5 value contract, and like without hesitation flipped it into, well, flip Brock for Sam Darnold? I was like, oh shit. And I mean, he went on to say bring in Sam to compete, which is another crazy, I think, element of that kind of conversation. But I think what had happened was the simple fact that it was brought up and it was spoken into the universe. So then that's now we're talking about that. We're reacting to it. Should the 49ers swap Purdy for Sam Darnold? So that's now a conversation, because Sam Darnold will be a free agent at the end of this year. As we've mentioned on previous shows, and what we already kind of understand is Brock will get paid. I really do believe will get paid this year, because I don't think that, based on what they have done up until this point, it makes sense to play on the final year of his contract, because it's so it's it would be insanely underpaid. He's already insanely underpaid, but they couldn't do anything about it. He was under contract, his rookie deal, and they couldn't renegotiate the contract until, I would say, his third year, after his third year. So we're there. We're at the third season. So we knew this was coming. Like we already talked about in the intro, the 49ers have openly mentioned that they are going to engage in these contract negotiations. And clearly we already understand what they're angling for. So, woo! And then now enter Baldy. And then he drops his sentiments into the mix. And then he got fire. Because we love to talk about this stuff. This is why the 49ers fans are the most passionate in the league, is because we care about off-season moves. We care about contracts. We care about free agency. We care about all the things. We care about how this team is constructed. Players are drafted, undrafted free agents, all those things. We care about all that stuff. So no surprise that that we care about this conversation. Is McDonald's Wi-Fi back? Am I lagging super bad? I apologize for that. I apologize if the Wi-Fi is acting up. Okay, great. So, anyways, the conversation has taken a wild turn from the sentiment of just put yourself back. Let's see, back at, let's say, like September 8th, the 49ers getting ready to play the Jets. Could you imagine someone mentioning that the San Francisco 49ers should not pay Brock and move off of Brock September 8th, a day before the season begins? And to fast forward to now, we get it. They played a whole season. So we have a body of work to evaluate. We understand that. That's not the point. The point is just where the conversation has gone. Brock Purdy at the start of this season is, oh, yeah, he's getting paid. Oh, it's just a matter of how much. Oh, the 49ers better get ready for that blank check. Brock Purdy about to get paid. Comes out, beats the Jets. Doesn't look great against the Vikings, but that's the whole team. Against the Rams, he was a machine. Week 3. Week 4 against the Patriots, he was also a machine. At around week 4, all the NFL experts were talking about Brock Purdy as like a top 5 quarterback, is because, remember, he had started moving around, and at this point, Ayuk wasn't playing well. They were down Christian McCaffrey, multiple injuries across the board, and Brock Purdy was having to do it himself. So, and that's been like the number one critique of Brock. Well, can he do it by himself? Can he do it without the Avengers and all these things? And he was proving that he could. Then you had that game against the Cardinals happen. All right. The Cardinals, they blew another fourth quarter lead. They had the game in hand. And what do? They do typical 49ers things, and they lose a lead in the fourth quarter. Then you go to Seattle Seahawks week 6 at Seattle, and Brock plays phenomenal. And even in that game against the Cardinals, where he did make some mistakes, he wasn't the reason why they lost that game. He had one pass deflected at the line of scrimmage that turned into an interception, and then he got hit on a zero blitz that he did not see, and as he was throwing it, the ball fluttered in the air and turned into an interception. Other than that, he actually played pretty well. If you remember in that Cardinals game, that was the game that we're like, oh, Brandon Ayuk's back. He looks great. Like, finally, BA's back. And BA was going off. And then we had the Chiefs game. The Chiefs game was a disaster. The Chiefs game was an unmitigated cluster of awfulness from everyone involved. Everyone. And then we come out, we beat the Cowboys. Bye week, we beat the Bucks. Brock had a heck of a game against the Bucks. So we're week 10. This is November 10th. Just for remember, this was a little bit over a month ago. Week 10, after the 49ers beat the Bucks, the conversation about Brock Purdy was, wow, what amazing second half he had against those Bucks. Getting out of the pocket, hitting George Kittle in the corner of the end zone for a touchdown. I was at that game. the conversation about that game, week 10, November 10th against the Bucks. Wow, what a great performance by Brock Purdy. Week 11 against Seahawks, defense gives up a game-winning drive to Geno Smith. And in this game, I believe this is where Brock Purdy gets injured. And he injures his throwing shoulder. But this is a game they should have won. Defense wasn't able to stop a Geno Smith-led game-winning drive. So they lose that game. And that sends everything kind of into a spiral. And then he doesn't play against the Packers. Brandon Allen played against the Packers, which, again, I think we all agree was probably a questionable decision. I think we all agree that in that game where you needed a little bit of someone with some legs to make some plays, Josh Dobbs would have probably been the nice fill-in week 12. Week 13, he's coming back off a shoulder injury to his throwing arm, and it's a snow globe. And that game, for whatever reason, became a measuring stick game against Josh Allen. Yeah, Josh Allen is playing insane, completely out of his mind. But somehow that became a measuring stick game. Okay. And then comes out, plays extremely well against the Bears. They absolutely kicked the crap out of the Bears. And then short week, turnaround, rain game against the Rams. And he throws the game-losing interception. Fast forward to today, it sounds like there is a strong majority of people, including some of Brock's biggest supporters, who don't want Brock on the 49ers anymore. So I'm sitting here thinking, like, how did we get here? How did we get to this point? Is it because he's the reason why the 49ers have had a bad season? I don't look at Brock as the reason why they had a bad season. I would say the games that he objectively played really bad in. Week 2 against the Vikings, week 7 against the Chiefs, week 13 against the Bills, week 15 against the Rams. That's 4 games. But in each of those games, everyone played terribly. In each of those 4 games, offensive line absolutely struggled. Actually, I would say Vikings, Chiefs, 49ers offensive line was completely useless. Bills, they did better because you had Ben Barch come in, but it was a snow game. And then this one against the Rams, mediocre. So I'm a big body of work guy, like I'm not hyperbolic. If you guys know anything about me, it's probably why maybe some people don't tune into me, because I don't give super hot takes. And I'm not super hyperbolic, and the wind blows this way, so I react that way. The wind blows that way, I react this way. I'm more so, let's take in all the information and then come up with a take that we think is correct. And so when I look at this season, and like I said, at the start of the season, you wouldn't be able to find one soul. No, that's not a lie. You would be able to, because they're the loudest right now. But I'm saying, I would say a strong majority of 49er fans would have given Brock Purdy a blank check September 8th before any of this started. And I just went through the season. I gave you my honest evaluation of how Brock played in each one of these games. I only look at 4 games where I can really point to Brock having significant issues in. One came after not being able to play due to a shoulder injury to his throwing arm in a snow globe. One in a rain bowl. Eviscerated by the Chiefs, destroyed by the Vikings. So I'm sitting back observing all of this conversation, sitting back looking at all this talk and how everyone is you mention top of market contract and then all of a sudden it's poof, we're done. And now that's a different conversation for me because I understand the hesitation of paying Brock that money. If I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, paying Brock 60 million plus per year is a little scary for me. For the fact of we don't know how that bears out over the coming years. We don't know how that bears out over free agency, continued roster construction, maintaining players, keeping Dre Greenlaw, giving George Kittle an extension, yada yada yada. Keeping Talanoa Hufanga, like we don't know how that bears out. I think everyone is of the assumption that if Brock gets 60 plus per year, that it means strip it all down. And it's Brock and a bunch of scrubs. And I think that idea scares people. But I think what we have to keep in mind also is that the cap is a constantly moving figure. So cap is going to continue to rise. You're going to continue to be able to elevate the cap space, right? So more cap will come. It's not a cap, like it's a capped league, absolutely, but the cap will rise. It will, and with how much money is coming into this league, the I think that when Josh Allen gets his $75 to $80 million per year on average, that's going to make the $60 million mark look significantly lower than it does right now. And I think this is where this whole conversation of what do we pay Brock, it's such a prisoner of right now. It's a prisoner of the 49ers just got eliminated by the Rams. Brock threw a terrible interception to end that game. Brock hasn't had his best season, and now the 49ers are going to pay him top quarterback money when it isn't going to be top quarterback money. That's the way that I'm looking at it, is that 60 mil per year on average is going to look completely different when Josh Allen is making $75 million per year. When Patrick Mahomes re-ups his $450 million contract or restructures it or whatever. So these are all the things that I'm just like trying to process. Obviously, if you, from a team perspective, if you can get Brock on a more value, like a more cost-effective contract, if we're talking average per year, you could get Brock close to a $60 million per year average, but you can change the signing bonus. You can adjust guaranteed overall dollars and the total value amount. So there's ways to kind of work and massage this. And so my assumption is that that's exactly what Parag is going to do. Parag is going to do all the little things that he does in building out these contracts with outs and incentives and this and that, so that when the number is printed, oh, Brock, top 5 paid, this, that, looks like, oh, he's in this category. But then, right, we like, well, let's wait till the details come out. you get into the details and you're like, oh, okay, that's pretty manageable. That's actually better than we thought. So I just feel like right now, what's happening is we are a prisoner of the moment. We are a prisoner of the fact that the San Francisco 49ers aren't competing for the playoffs. We're a prisoner of the moment that we had expectations of going back to the Super Bowl. We had prisoners of the moment of Brock Purdy taking that next step and being an MVP candidate, and that not happening. And so, as a result of that, I think the fan base is kind of spiraling a little bit because I don't think everyone knows how to process this. Because when you look, like, for example, when Jimmy Garoppolo got the biggest contract in NFL history after 5 games with the San Francisco 49ers, really similar response. But about a couple weeks later, he was no longer the highest paid, and then he just got absolutely passed by everyone else. And then it just kept going worse, like higher, 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 higher. So the thing is, people are looking at, I think the point that I'm trying to make is 55 to 60 will soon kind of be the average in about 2 years. The price of doing business for a top 15 quarterback is going to be about between that 50 to 60 range. So that's the thing. It's like, do people view Brock Purdy better than Kyler Murray? Do you view Brock Purdy better than Kirk Cousins? Do you view Brock Purdy better than Tua? Than Trevor? Because his resume is better than them. And I just think that right now, Brock isn't mobile. Did you not watch this season? So I just think that there's a lot going on. I think that we're all trying to digest the new quarterback numbers. The quarterback numbers are daunting. They're daunting to me. And I've been staring at them for a while. But also, you can't think for just now. You got to think, you got to project out. So what is that number going to look like in 2 years from now? Well, in 2 years from now, if that 50 to 55 isn't going to look that crazy. Right now, it looks crazy. Right? When we saw Trevor Lawrence get that contract, we're like, what? When we saw Tua get that contract, we're like, huh? When we saw Kirk Cousins get his contract, I said, whoa. They gave how much money to Kirk Cousins? Coming off a torn Achilles at what age? So I think what's happening is the context is getting lost. Emotions are high. And people are a little scared with how this season has went. That's all fair. That is all fair. It all makes sense to me. I get it. This wasn't a great season. There are definitely things that you can critique about Brock's game. There are pluses, there are minuses, all of that stuff, right? So, and we live in a world where everyone wants Superman. No one wants Batman. If you guys remember my Purdy comparisons, Superman is Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Jordan Love, because of their elite physical tools. Brock Purdy is Batman. Brockman. He's Batman. He's a human. He's mortal. He's got all the gadgets, and he knows how to use them. And he knows how to implement them. You know, so it said Batman needs Robin. Batman needs Robin. So, damn, you guys are harsh, dude. Oh my gosh. So, at least you guys are funny with your crap talking. Oh my gosh. Um so anyways, I think you get the point. Is I think people are nervous. I think people don't know how to quantify the situation. It would be a lot different if the 49ers were still in it, if they were competing for the playoffs, because this conversation wouldn't be happening like this, right? It would be it would be something that would be coming after the Dolphins game, after the Lions game, after the Cardinals game. And then when you get into the playoffs, then we evaluate through the playoffs, right? Where, let's not forget Brock Purdy has had a phenomenal playoff track record. So that is part of the resume. That's part of what goes into getting him paid. And when you look at how he's been able to perform in high pressure situations, think about think about how he performed against the Green Bay Packers playing from behind. Think about how he played versus the Detroit Lions in the NFC Championship game down 24-7 and using his legs, making plays, a big reason why the 49ers were able to advance in both of those games. So I don't know. I feel like I feel like with the conversations that I'm seeing, all of that stuff feels like it has disappeared and it doesn't exist anymore. It's not a part of the conversation. And it has to be. It has to be a part of the conversation because that's what the conversation will look like when they get to the negotiation table and they start talking about how much will we pay this guy? What's he worth? All right, pull up his playoff track record, pull up his regular season track record, and now stack that against what the market says. And again, I keep talking about this notion of how do you determine to pay or what should you pay? It's not based on anything that we think. It's based on what the market says. It's based on his resume. So I don't know. Just it's interesting because what are the options? Are we really going to go from Brock to Sam? Is that a viable option? Do you trade Brock? What do you do in that scenario? If you've decided as an organization that you're not going to pay this guy who is so interestingly enough, because I have kids, kids love Brock. Like when you talk about the younger generation of 49er fans, the younger generation mess with Brock. Like they love Brock. So us old heads, us uh you know, broken, beaten down 49er fans who are just so desperate for a Super Bowl that we will get rid of the best quarterback that we've had since Steve Young because we're scared of paying him. That's who we are. But you have this young fan base. They love Brock. They love Brock. Extremely marketable. That's why he's in every freaking like every single marketing. He's an extremely marketable guy. So I just think there's a lot of elements to this conversation that yes, they need to make a football conversation. It's a football decision, right? They're not making it because of fans. It's a football decision. But Brock has done a lot of good things for this franchise. He represents them well. He's 24 years old. And I don't know. It just seems interesting to see the reaction to this season because it isn't all on Brock. At least that's not my evaluation. I don't look at this season and say Brock's the reason why they're out of the playoffs. He's a big reason why they lost to the Rams because of the one particular throw. But I'm sure if Deebo Samuel catches that pass and scores a touchdown, that throw doesn't happen. So there's a lot of butterfly effect stuff. There's a lot of interesting elements to this year. Offensive line has been atrocious in spots. The interior offensive line has not been good outside of Pooney. 49ers defensive coordinators have had Kyle's number. They have been taking advantage of the 49ers protection rules since the Vikings game and just overloading and throwing the kitchen sink at Brock. And guess what? The 49ers don't adjust because the adjustment is built into the play, which puts more pressure on Brock to have to see the adjustment in real time to be able to see, oh, they're overloading again. There's so many different factors into the struggles of the 49ers season this year. Dre Greenlaw talked about today how not having Christian McCaffrey and not having Brandon Ayuk has been a huge disadvantage for these guys because of the blue collar mentality that they brought of just showing up and working their tails off, and how that changes the kind of mentality of everyone else because it rises the level of play, and not having those guys around is definitely going to create an impact. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Brock Purdy has been lights out this season. He's been lights out in moments. Absolutely. He's had some moments where he looked phenomenal. He's also had some moments where he hasn't looked phenomenal. But I think there's more to the story than it just being solely on Brock. There's been a lot of things that we've questioned. A lot of things about adjustments, play calling. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of things that went wrong with this season. And it's unfortunate that it comes in a year that Brock has to get paid, and things were going pretty well, and it has absolutely spun out of control. So what happens from here? Where do we go from here? Um, do you pay Brock? Do you trade Brock? I don't. Again, we talked about this yesterday. I do not believe that making him play next year on a rookie deal is an option. It's not an option. So that's not an option, um, because it it's just not. It's just not an option. So what are the solutions here? Where do you go? Who do you get? Do you really hit the reset button with an unknown, or you're like, you know what? Let's go get Sam. Let's go get Sam Darnold. And I'm just curious. Do you think Sam Darnold would have performed well this year? Just flip Brock and Sam. What do you think happens with Brock in Minnesota? How do you think Brock plays for the Vikings? Do you think Brock is probably on a MVP trajectory right now if he's playing with the Vikings? Well, he's got Justin Jefferson and he's got Addison and he's got a great offensive line and Aaron Jones and Hawkinson and a phenomenal defense that plays good complementary football. What do you think Brock's doing over there with the Vikings? What do you think Sam Darnold is doing with the 49ers and that offensive line and this defense and these defensive schemes that have their number, know exactly what they're trying to do, overloading him, constantly having to make adjustments off free rushers? You think Sam Darnold is going to play well? You think Sam's going to play well in that scenario? Like what? Like context matters in evaluation. I don't know how many times we got to talk about this. Context matters when you evaluate things. And to sit here and be like, oh yeah, we'll flip Brock for Sam. If Sam was in this scenario this season, he would look exactly like Sam Darnold in the New York Jets. Identical. Because he would have been dealing with the same issues. No protection. Completely just taken for a ride by defensive coordinators because they knew exactly what the 49ers were trying to do. No Christian McCaffrey, no Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel's cooked. What are we talking about? What are we actually talking about? Did you know that it took until week 14 for the 49ers to play 60 minutes of football? Week 14. Week 14. For the defense, offense, and special teams sort of showed up. We still had some miscues on special teams, but they showed up for the most part. No missed kicks, no turnovers, no touchdowns given up. So it's just it's a what fits my narrative argument. Oh, let's just flip Sam for Brock. Sam would have melted underneath the same exact circumstances that Brock Purdy just went through this season. Like, if you're going to play the hypothetical game, play it both ways. Do you think Brock struggles with the Vikings? Like, seriously, ask yourself that. I don't. Brock probably thrives with the Vikings this year. Brock is probably they're probably close to being undefeated this year if Brock's on the Vikings. Oh, but Sam has a good arm. Sam has always had a good arm. Sam is a good arm. The day that I sat in Memorial Stadium at Cal Berkeley, I watched Sam Darnold come into town with USC, made some phenomenal throws, like some real, that's a top quarterback prospect. And he also threw 3 of the most boneheaded interceptions I had ever seen. And that day I said, this guy doesn't see it. Beautiful arm, probably one of the best arms in the NFL. And I said, nope, not for me. Not for me. He makes bad decisions. Great arm, bad decisions. But it helps when you have JJ, Addison, great offensive scheme, offensive line, running back, tight end, great defense. And they're like, oh, like you don't think Brock could perform in that environment? Like, is this a serious conversation? Are we really going to sit here and pretend that the Vikings season this year and the 49ers season this year are even in the same stratosphere? So that's why I don't like these hypothetical conversations, because they don't play out even the full hypothetical. Darnold would melt underneath the the circumstances that Brock had to play quarterback this year. In fact, I would go out on a limb and say anyone who's not Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, maybe Joe Burrow, maybe Justin Herbert. That's about the list of quarterbacks who wouldn't melt under the 49ers current set of circumstances. And Brock has kept his head above water. But that's not how it's perceived. That's not how it's evaluated. It's not like, oh yeah, Kirk Cousins would do wonders behind this 49ers offensive line. Would do wonders with wide receivers who can't get open, that aren't named George Kittle. Brock Purdy's deep ball is not ideal. I will give you that. He's just the accuracy isn't there. I don't know if that is a function of the arm. I don't know. The accuracy needs to be better on the deep ball. I'll give you that. I will absolutely give you that. I believe that the deep ball accuracy, ball placement, upfield, outside shoulder, all of that. Yeah, yes. Would love to see that improve for sure. But you want to talk about toughness. You want to talk about standing in the pocket, evading pressure in the pocket. Brock Purdy does so many small things within the pocket to keep plays alive that is missed by so many, because his little sidesteps, his little shuffle of feeling the pressure. There have been so many plays that we've broken down on this channel. If Brock's just stood at the exact spot of his drop, like a Kirk Cousins would do, like a Jared Goff would do, like a Joe Burrow would, he would get eviscerated. Eviscerated. Batman says, good job sticking it. His logic is flawed. Whatever. Everyone has their own thought process. Everyone has their own context. I don't really care about that. But at the end of the day, that's the point. It's the point of what we're talking about. It's like, at what point do we take in all the information and then have a conversation about it, and then give an analysis about it, and then actually talk about it? So it is what it is, man. I see the switch up. The goalpost movers have moved the goalpost. Not a surprise. When people tell you who they are, let them tell you who they are. So if they're going to move the goalpost constantly, don't be surprised when, oh, it's finally where we want it to be. Now we're really going to tell you how we feel, because we've known that all along. But you got to put on a brave face when it's not going your way. But when it's going your way, oh yeah, we know. Oh, we know how you felt. We know the truth. You've told us. So it's an interesting situation. It's an interesting dynamic. And yeah, so everything's kind of spiraling. So we got 3 more weeks left in the season. Buckle on up. We talked about this yesterday. We said that each individual performance, Dolphins, Lions, Cardinals, are all going to have some kind of dramatic evaluation to what Brock Purdy should get paid. So every week from here on out, Dolphins, Lions, Cardinals is all going to contribute to the same conversation that we are having today. This move on from Brock, flip him for Sam, that is every game and every way he performs from here on out will be tied to this conversation because that's just how it works. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes, but don't expect it to die down anytime soon. But it is what it is. It's going to leave for a very eventful offseason. I told you guys this all year. I said that I don't think this will be a smooth sailing negotiation, and I think we're already seeing that play out. So, yeah. And Kirk Cousins just got benched by the Falcons. So add that to the list of more speculation for 49ers future quarterbacks. So Kirk Cousins, future Niner? I don't know. We're going to find out. But appreciate everyone, as always, for tapping in. I'm really looking forward to continuing to have this conversation on repeat for the next 5 months. And it's going to be a blast. So we'll continue to track it all like we normally do. And just envision the next 3 weeks as Brock Purdy playing for his contract, because that's exactly how it's going to be treated. So get your cookies on the way out. And remember, guys, this is football. Relax. We're talking about quarterbacks. You don't got to be at each other's necks over this situation. Agree, disagree, pay him, don't pay him. Who cares at the end of the day? Don't be at each other's necks. Don't say some out-of-pocket crap just because you disagree with someone's football take. Just chill, all right? We can have a conversation. We can talk about this. We can talk about that. Relax, all right? It's football, man. Quarterback drama off season is back. Oh, gosh, we are so back. It was too good. It was too good to be true without all the quarterback drama, but we are so back, gang. Let's go. Appreciate you guys. I'm out. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see